Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, non-binary, distinguished guests, welcome to Ridiculous, the Life of a Clown. Hello, and welcome to Ridiculous Life of a Clown. I'm Gherkin Picklewater, and today I have with me the amazing clown, Andrew P. Quick of Pi, and he's an improviser, he's many other things. Andrew, please tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Andrew P. Quick. My clown name is Mr. Quick. Correct, Pi was the first way I got into clowning in UC Santa Cruz. I founded a troupe with some friends called Pi the Physical Comedy Troupe, and that went on for years. And we worked with you, Mr. Picklewater, for lots of different events. We worked together on lots. You produced a ton of Pi material. In the more recent years, the members of Pi went their separate ways. Some went on to be actors in Hollywood. Some went and joined Cirque. Some moved to New Mexico and are working with Meow Wolf now. Lots of different avenues that people took. One of the clowns, Mr. Mustache, Tyler Parks, and I, we continued to work together for his company called Circus of Smiles. And we were doing the library circuit, so performing there. And then the pandemic, as for many artists, the pandemic happened, which stopped most of our performing. Along with that, I also worked with the Medical Clown Project, which I think you've probably interviewed, some members a little bit. I worked with the Medical Clown Project, which is a group of clowns that goes into assisted living facilities and hospitals and works with residents and patients there, bringing the power of joy, laughter, and healing. And also, while I'm clowning, I also graduated from seminary. So I got a master's in divinity while I was doing those things. I also worked with the Bay Area Children's Theater. I wrote and produced a show with them called Press Here while in seminary. I finished seminary, and my kind of study of focus was how comedy and laughter can be used in interfaith contexts. So I use my circus skills in comedy while still Medical Clown Project, while still doing Circus of Smiles. I also take that and perform at different synagogues and churches. Most recently, I'm studying a chaplaincy program. So I'm really tying together, I'm in a chaplaincy internship where I'm tying together the Medical Clown Project work that we're doing alongside what it means to be an interfaith chaplain. So what does it mean to provide spiritual care as well as comedy care in a similar interaction? So that's what I've been up to the last couple of years now.
Yeah, that's so much stuff, and it's so amazing. And I'm not sure exactly where to start. Let's go start with clown itself, just on a basic level. Why do you do clown?
I do clown because I like the sense of wonder and play that a clown provides. I like the vulnerability that a clown exists in. And for me, a clown can kind of speak truth and say things that might not otherwise be spoken. And so that to me is where I found clowning to be kind of foundational to the work that I do as a chaplain and as a spiritual care provider. Also, on a more physical level, I just like slapstick comedy. I just like that sort of non-verbal sort of humor.
Very nice. So when you say slapstick, what do you mean when you say slapstick?
Well, I'm thinking of Looney Tunes, and I'm thinking of the Buster Keaton and the Charlie Chaplin. For me, the slapstick is the physical expression of interacting with another human body, the physical expression of meeting forces of nature, and how we can tell story with our body without using any words. So it's kind of a broad understanding.
So not necessarily just Schadenfreude, but just using the body for comedy in general. Okay.
Right. That's cool. And and audiences love it when Mr. Mustache hits me in the face. So we also do that. Yeah. I mean, that's also important.
Schadenfreude is a huge part of my thing, so I don't frown on it at all. I know there are many clowns who do not like it, but it's a big part of what gives me joy, and a big part of the joy I try to bring to other people. Right. So what? Let's start with let's just go off on a weird tangent. The library circuit. I've had a number of clowns on who've done the library circuit, but we've never really talked about it. How did you get into that? What's it consist of? What's the process like?
I don't remember how we got into it. I think Tyler heard about it, And what normally happens, this is pre-pandemic, so everything's now moved on to Zoom land, and there's some performers that are still doing the library circuit through Zoom. We decided that that wasn't fulfilling for us, so we haven't done the online thing. So I can't speak to the current situation in the library circuit. So, but before the pandemic shut everything down, usually in the spring, there was a showcase, and performers would come and show what they have to offer to libraries. And there would be people doing circus, there would be people doing puppetry, magic, bubbles, you name it. You would see it at the showcase. And you had about 7 minutes, and all the libraries in the Bay Area, and even a little bit broader than that, Sonoma County, even in like Modesto and Sacramento, Davis, all the librarians would come and they would watch. And then they would approach you after, and you would try to get booked that way. And so we did that one year. And then once our name got out there and people liked what Circus of Smiles was doing, and Tyler, Mr. Mustache, he runs a lot of the business side of it, really liked how professional he was. Your name gets out there and then people start hiring you. And then in the summer, what happens is you travel around to libraries from Monterey to Cloverdale out to Placerville, and you put on your show. It's about a 45-minute show, and you get paid by the Friends of the Library, which is a support group for libraries. They pay you, and all the shows are free to the community. And so a lot of the time what's happening is we're getting booked for shows, so when schools aren't in, libraries provide the free meal for a lot of students who are in hunger insecurity. So a lot of the time your show is right before or after lunch. So the kids come in, they get to enjoy the free entertainment, and then they get their free meal. And so that is a lot of what we do. And then sometimes that library circuit kind of expands and you're doing community center shows or kind of bigger shows where it's the afternoon and it's the thing to do. There are some towns where you show up and there's over 100 and something people in the library crammed in because it was the thing to do on a Thursday night. And so I think that kind of is the library circuit. And like I said, I think Mr. Mustache and I we had to cancel 110 shows when the pandemic came because we had about 110 library shows set up between end of May and beginning of August.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's spectacular. I mean, that's so many shows, but it's great that you guys were working so consistently. I know that Coventry and Calusa do a lot of the library shows as well. I looked into it. I was trying to put together a show on bodily autonomy with those puppets that you can see in the back there, Otto and Nami, autonomy, autonomy. And but I couldn't get the show together with the people that I was trying to work with, and so it just never happened. But yeah, that's so cool. Your show is specifically a clown show, or when you're doing library?
Yeah. Tyler and I kind of bill it as a comedic juggling show. I think we call it the death-defying anti-gravity juggling show.
Okay.
What we're mainly doing is clown. We've discovered through the years as we get older and the tricks become harder on our bodies, we've discovered that the crowds really just want to see the funny and the clowning. So we do some juggling. We do, two high juggle as kind of a final trick, and I do some rollabola juggling act. But I would say 75% of it is just us doing comedy, doing some verbal jokes, and then just a lot of slapstick and kind of clown vignettes.
Do you do the ball heads?
We do the ball head dance, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the ball head dance and how that came to be and what it is.
I have to be honest with you, that was a Pie the Physical Comedy Troupe thing. I think it was you'd have to ask Bruce Glasseroff.
Oh, wow, okay.
That's a name from the past, I know.
Yeah.
I think he and Tyler came up with it when we were about to tour one year, when we were still touring the Fringe circuit. I think it was a Bruce... No, we were in the Clown House. Wow, now I'm going way back. We were all living in the Presidio, right? So after we graduated at Santa Cruz, the Pie Clowns all moved into the Presidio, a 4-bedroom apartment with all 7 of us. And we were doing photos for like some business card or something. And I think Craig put a ball into a hoodie and became a ball head. I think it was Craig. And we took photos with the ball head and we thought it was so funny. And then I think from there, Tyler and Bruce were like, hey, that would be funny to do a dance number, because Bruce loved dance and he's such a really good physical mover and dancer. Little known fact about Bruce, he's a really good dancer, or maybe it's known, I'm not sure. And so I think him and Tyler came up with the ball head, and then when we were going to tour it, the ball head routine, when we started coming up, we asked Bruce, hey, we're going to use the ball head, and so we kind of used it. And I remember turning to Tyler, and I said, I think 2 ball heads is too scary. For a lot of the library circuit, you're getting younger audiences sometimes, and having 2 puppets that don't have faces can be a bit scary. And that's when we came up with the idea of, well, what if we have one clown who doesn't have the ball head and the other one has the ball head? And so that's how we do the act now. I'm a ball head and Tyler isn't. And that way the kids can relate to Tyler saying, oh, this is weird. Oh, this is scary. Tyler's there to kind of say, yes, this is weird. Yes, this is scary. As where I kind of am this inanimate faced ball head.
That's so cool. I've always loved the amount of music and dance in Pi in general. I know that we were all taught as part of our dogma that circus and music, at least on our circus clown training, that circus and music go together and they should be paired. But you don't see that a lot in clown because I don't know why. I don't know why you don't see it more often.
Well, and I think you had Patty Gallagher on recently, or you interviewed her perhaps,
Yep.
Yeah. And I remember in Santa Cruz, which is where I met Patty, which is where I met Clown, she said, you need to create your clown act first. And then if you want to add music, you can add music then. And so she was a big proponent of, you got to do the clown without the music, because you have to be able to instill the emotional content of your material without the music kind of making people feel what you want them to feel. Your clown needs to do it first. And so we were kind of shied away from music for a while. Pi started with very little music. And then we started to go, oh, we get it, build the material, and then see what kind of music kind of can partner with you once you're the lead partner and the music kind of follows you. But Ballhead, that's a dance. I mean, that's to music. That's So I think that's what makes it helpful having Tyler not have the ball head, is he can do some of the clown work, because now it's sort of a dance off. The routine now is me as ball head doing a dance off with Tyler, and we kind of are going back and forth. So it's a little bit more tit for tat, that clown sketch. And it's a little bit of tit for tat with music.
I want to talk a little bit about Pi, but I really, really want to dig into the seminary stuff. So before we get into the seminary stuff, tell me how Pi came about for you, and yeah. Yeah,
Pi. So we were at UC Santa Cruz. I was a sophomore. I took a class called an Acting Studio 3 class, which you needed to take one Acting Studio 3, and they were all in different genres. And one was taught by this professor, Patty Gallagher, and she taught physical comedy. And I thought, that's for me. I was already learning to juggle. I was already doing some unicycling. I did that in high school. And so I went and auditioned for the class, and I got in, and she introduced us to clown. And I quickly discovered that this is where I wanted to spend my time. Not only did it tie together some of the physical things that I enjoyed, it was all about vulnerability. It was about being able to laugh at yourself. And I think those are skills that I embodied before, but never had language for. And so meeting the clown and learning the language around clown, I started to be able to go, oh, this is what I like about performing. This is what I like about being in front of people, laughing with people, being with people, not pretending there's a fourth wall, but really being there. And so we took that class. And after that class, I went to Patty and I said, I want more. Will you do an independent study with me? An independent study, Acting Studio 5 or whatever. We'll call it Clown 2. And she said, I will do an independent study with you. You got to find some people to do it with. And here's a list of people I think you should do. And so we did an independent study. And I'm trying to remember, I think Craig, a Pi member, Tom Lazar, Nikki Laurie, who you probably don't know, and then Bruce, Tyler. There were others, but they're not pop. Dale might have been one. Anyway, some other people that were all in Santa Cruz. And after we took the independent study, we said, hey, let's start a troupe. And we called it Pi because I think we thought it was funny to be a math equation or a math symbol that's never ending and illogical. And we started doing shows. And then the next year we held auditions, and it was kind of like an improv troupe. We had improv troupes on campus, And so we were just like, we had an all-female sketch comedy troupe at UC Santa Cruz, and then we had a physical comedy troupe. And we were just would do comedy nights, and we did a few events at the campus. And then when we graduated, we said, let's keep doing this. Let's not leave it at UC Santa Cruz, but let's take it with us. And so that is how we all ended up in clown school, and then toured for a while and became an LLC, did summer tours, did some corporate events, and then over time, like any good thing, like the universe expanding and shrinking, we were doing lots of stuff, and then over time people started to go their own ways and do their own thing. And so now Pi was doing like one or two events, and Pi was mainly Leah Gardner and myself. We were kind of the last two remnants of Pi that were doing about 2 shows. So yeah.
So that's great. That's super helpful. That's amazing. I love Pi, and I've always been a big fan of the group and everything you guys do, especially just the pardon the phrase, but the ungodly amount of material that you had. You had so much material worked out that was so modular that you could put together. I mean, you had to have at least 4 hours worth of stuff that you could, and that's what it seemed like to me. At least 4 hours worth of presentable material that you could piece together into different formats to make different shows.
Well, we were like 7 people at the largest, and then we were kind of at 6 there for a while. And yeah, I remember it'd be like, okay, we get this gig. They can only pay this much, so 3 of us are going to go, and they want a 45-minute show. What material do the 3 of you have? Or they would be like, well, can we use that piece even though none of us were? And so we would like start learning each other's material almost, or like use a good shtick and then put it in a different. But you're right, the ability of 6 people to cross-pollinate, to come up, to create, to swap roles, to find new things when I do your piece and I find this new piece that then you take and you begin to do in your way. And so that's always was a benefit, I think, of working in a troupe that big.
All right, let's get to the meat of it, the thing that I really wanted to talk to you about, which is seminary and clown. How did this come to be for you? Where did this bring you? Are you a preacher? I mean, what are you officially, having gone through seminary and going into chaplain internship? Tell me all about this.
I'm laughing because there's so much to get into. So I'm gonna. So I was in clown school and in Pi. We used to have I remember coming up with a personal mission statement, which I think is important for artists to. Why are you doing what you do? Because sometimes we're pushing and struggling so hard to make ends meet, to like find the next gig. You know, being an artist means you're always unemployed. You're always looking for the next thing, trying to find it. And so I think it's important to have a personal mission statement that's sort of grounded in your theory of what you're doing. And I remember in Santa Cruz and in clown school, my personal mission statement was always to discover heaven on earth through laughter. I was raised in a very conservative Christian upbringing. And then through my years in Santa Cruz and going to clown school, my theology has shifted to be a much more liberal and open-minded theology. And so I stumbled into a Presbyterian church. The Presbyterian Church, PCUSA, is a Christian denomination. It's fairly liberal, very open-minded. Some of the first to allow women to be pastors, and also to ordain the LGBTQ community members. And so they're kind of on, I think now when we hear the word Christian, especially after the 4 years of the last president we see this like nationalism, or this sort of Christianity in this kind of very aggressive way. And the Christianity of the Presbyterian Church is sort of antithesis to that. It's a much more open, everyone's searching, we're all asking questions, there is no right way, and we're trying to not save souls per se. What we're trying to do is social justice. We're trying to help people eat, find food, find a way to be in community that's healthy, and not so much worry about what happens to your soul when you die. So I want to give that, because I know not everyone knows all the ins and outs of Christianity. I think that's why I was laughing first. I kind of have to give that. So I always knew I'd go to seminary. I remember being a kid, being told about the Bible, and I always said, I want to figure it out for myself. What does the ancient Greek say? What does the ancient Hebrew say? So I always knew I'd end up When I was doing clowning, okay, so then I caught up there. So I stumble into this Presbyterian church. I'm doing a show on the same campus as this church. So there was a nonprofit theater company sharing a campus with a church. I go in, I'm doing this show. I don't know anyone in the room. I get to know this guy. I start talking to this guy. He's an older gentleman. He's a mime. He tells me he's studying mime. I'm a clown. We're in a show together. And then he turns to me and says, "Oh, I'm also the pastor at this church." And I was like, "What? You can do art and be a churchgoer? You can do art and be a pastor?" So I started going to that church. Turns out to be Presbyterian. There was this really cute redhead who was teaching the children at the church, who was also in the show, who is now my wife. So I started going to the church, and I said, I am really curious about where art and religion intersect. We see it all the time when we study ancient paintings and we look at things. We see this interaction. And so I applied to some seminaries, and I got in, and then I got offered a full ride to go to San Francisco Theological Seminary up in Marin County. And so I went and started studying there with the intention of really looking at comedy, laughter, clown, and how that could be used in spaces that sometimes get the stigma or the dogma of very staunch and religious and kind of uptight. And where does play and wonder and laughter and clown exist there? Come to find out, there's a lot of people studying this, or there have been in the past people kind of studying this intersection. And so during my studies there, I just tried lots of different things. I put together something I'm calling Holy Humor, and it's a service that a church or a place of faith, a lot of my work is in the Christian faith, mainly because that's what I studied while in seminary. So we go into churches, and Mr. Mustache and I have adopted our show to kind of fit the liturgy of a church. So often in a church, we do something called the call to worship. And it's this call and response that the person does with the congregation, in this case. I usually call the congregation the audience because I can't get my words straight. And it's like, oh, we're here to worship. And then the audience says, yes, we are. We're here to lift up our voices. Yes, we are. Let's sing a song together. And then we all sing together. And so Tyler and I do our audience warm-up, as we call it in our show, an audience warm-up of clapping. We've adapted that to work into the liturgical frame of a call to worship. So now people come to church and they experience this audience warm-up or call to worship. Churches often pass the hat, or what we call it as a offering. And people offer money as a way to support the church, and then the church that I work for uses that money to then support different mission partners, different organizations that are feeding the hungry or helping children with education. And so it's this kind of moment for offering. Well, as you know, street performers have to pass the hat all the time. And so we've turned into our street performance kind of art of passing the hat, and we put that in kind of the liturgical space of an offering. And so we're finding ways in which these two things very much are similar. And it's a way for people, mainly intergenerational audiences, to come in and say, I didn't know church could be like this.
That's really deeply interesting. And you've been doing this for how long?
Well, a couple of years now. I graduated 3 years ago from seminary. And by the time when I graduated seminary, kind of my final big project was putting together this Holy Humor script, is what I called it. And so Tyler and I have done it a few places, and then the pandemic kind of sidelined that. So the next idea is, because most churches are doing some kind of hybrid form of worship, my hope is this summer to kind of film all of that with Mr. Mustache so that we can have something that we can send to churches and kind of have this online service that people can use, a resource for folks. So a couple of years now I've been doing it.
That's wow. That's not something so this is the closest I've ever come to having someone who is in clown ministry on the podcast. And it's something I've been interested in having for a while, but they don't run in our circles. You know, there is no overlap between theatrical clown and circus clown and the retiree grandma doing ministry clown that you get at those weird little clown conventions like Comedy Fest, which is almost entirely ministry clown and birthday clown. There's a lot of overlap between birthday and ministry, but not so much with our worlds. So I don't really know any. And And yours is
I
it?
could.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead with what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I honestly don't run through many ministry clowns either. I've looked up some that are online, and I look at their material or their shtick, and again, they seem to run in a different circle. Again, seem to be about, oh, this is a great way to save some souls and to get the word of Jesus out. To evangelize is a word that's sometimes used. Our service is more about creating holy space with laughter. And I think that that is different than, let me make you laugh so I can convince you that what I'm selling is good for you. Mine
Absolutely.
is, let me make you laugh because in the action of laughing together, we are creating holy space. We are creating space, and holy meaning a place that's set apart from the ordinary. That in our laughter, we are inviting the divine or the spirit or the whatever word you want to use. I don't see a Christian God in this. I just mean we create something that is unique in its moment in time.
For me, so much of what I have my own weird dogma about laughter, about what laughter creates, how laughter on a feral level, on an animalistic level, we are like monkeys and dogs. We bare our teeth and bark, and we do that to often to drive out something that has violated the cultural norms. And by volunteering to be the thing that's being laughed at, you're bringing that group of people together as a tribe, as a cohesive whole, and making them feel strong and healthy. And like, I'm not the one being driven out. I belong. I fit. I'm secure, and I am not at risk. I am not threatened. And that makes you feel healthier. That makes you feel stronger. And we all know about you've talked about medical clowning, about how laughter, mirthful laughter, causes this explosion of endorphins and endomorphin in your the endocrine system, that causes your blood pressure to drop dramatically and just overall has long-term health effects. And so hearing you talk about laughter as creating a holy space that is set aside, I see some parallels there, some corollaries.
Right. For me, community is a big part of it. So when you were talking about the bringing of people together, I think that is another way in which I can experience holiness or a very special spiritual moment is when a community is together. In community, when we're connected and we know that we're not alone, that we're loved, that we're accepted. And I think that although that might not be exactly what a group laughing in what your description was, I think that there are definitely some crossover to that.
Are you a minister? Is that what your official title would be, or is that only? I don't know how it works.
Yeah. So in the Presbyterian, again, this is all depends on what Christian denomination you're on. I'm on the Presbyterian track. So the Presbyterian track, I do work as a pastor of a church in Broadmoor. Okay. It's called Broadmoor Presbyterian Church. I am their pastor in Daly City. Although I am their pastor, I am not ordained yet. So ordination is part of the process. And then once I'm ordained, which I'm hoping will be done in the summer, I will be reverend quick.
Will be see.
Yeah, I'll be a reverend but pastor is another word that Presbyterians use. Minister. Yeah. So.
Well, before we've got a little bit of time left, I want to get back into some core clowning concepts. What is your theoretical framework for knowing that a piece is going to be good before you get in front of an audience? Like, what's your litmus? How do you know that you're going in the right direction?
Wow. How do you know you're going in the right direction? Well, what is it? Patty Gallagher says, for every minute on stage, you spend 100 hours in rehearsal.
That's a lot of rehearsal.
That's a lot of rehearsal, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, honestly, I haven't created a whole lot of new material recently. And because Tyler and I were doing so many shows, we were finding that the way I was kind of knowing if something was going to be funny is I was improvising it on the stage with him.
Okay.
And if I would get a good laugh, then I might kind of deepen that improv or play with that some more. So a lot of, we were at that stage where we were rehearsing in front of an audience a lot of the time just because we were doing it so much. And with that, as a pastor, I have to preach once a week. Sundays keep coming every week. I don't know if you know that. And people are expected to say words on a Sunday morning. And so I was just kind of reflecting on that. And when I'm working on that material, sometimes obviously I'm using comedy. And I think that if I find it funny, that's usually a pretty good step.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if it's authentic and true of myself, that's usually another good thing. If it feels like I'm faking it or trying too hard, it usually doesn't work. Audience knows.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, that litmus is what's funny. And this is what I've said to a number of my clown friends who worry about what the audience will think or how the audience will respond. It's like, there's a lot of audience. There's a lot of audiences out there, and there's going to be, thousands of people who think the same things are funny that you are. So you just really have to appeal to what works inside of you. But you're talking about being true to yourself. Yeah, that's absolutely, I think, inherent to what a clown has to be.
Well, and it's just kind of off topic, but it just made me think that when I was interning at a church when I was in seminary and I was preaching, it took me a while to realize that just because people aren't laughing doesn't mean they're not listening. Because we do so much clown that we expect a laugh. So it took me some time to be like, oh, when I'm preaching, I don't need to get laughter. But when the audience doesn't laugh, I think I'm doing a bad job. It took me a couple times to realize oh no, there are other ways in which you can, even as clowns, obviously laughter is what we eat. That's what we want. And there are times where the clown can actually do something and get a different response.
A lot of the improv that I've been doing lately is very. It's not one of the reasons I wanted to do a new show is because this improv is all. It's not comedy oriented.
Right.
And that's weird to me. I
love that stuff.
Yeah, it's intense and it's very emotional and it's very dramatic. But as a clown coming into it, it's just like we're it doesn't feel natural to not be chasing a laugh of some kind. And so there's an effort that you have to do to get past that.
Right.
What is completely left field? What's the weirdest gig you've ever had?
Oh my goodness. I mean, there's where I feel the weirdest because I'm having to do a birthday party, and that was really weird. I stopped doing those. And then there's the Greg Angelo gigs where you get dressed up as a giant fish that juggles, bubbles or whatever. So those are some of the ones that popped to my head.
Well, how about this? What is going kind of the opposite of the spectrum? What is a performance, not necessarily the performance, but a performance or role that you are most proud of?
I am really proud of this Holy Humor script that Tyler and I have created that we're still kind of honing down. And I remember we were about to do it at my home church, Valley Presbyterian Church, for one of their services. And a couple weeks before we were about to do it, Mr. Mustache's father had passed away.
Oh.
And at his funeral, the bulletin that they put together had a poem that his dad wrote about love. And during our show, we have a moment for meditation in our Holy Humor service. And Tyler does contact juggling with the contact juggling balls. And that morning, I came to him and I said, Tyler, while you're doing the contact juggling moment for meditation, instead of just playing music, I would like to read your dad's poem. And so I think that was something that I was really proud of in the scheme of we're getting these laughter and we're opening people up and bringing people together. And at the same time, when people laugh, they become more vulnerable, I think. And so you can also explore the other emotions that are there. You can invite people in to really feel. And so that was a moment where I just felt like we responded to what was happening in the world, and it wasn't about covering up. Clowns aren't about covering up everything with laughter. It's about exposing reality. And sometimes that can be with tears in all kinds of form.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. How is Tyler doing, by the way?
Yeah, he's great. You know, he's raising that boy of his who's it must be driving now and smoking his own cigarettes. No, I'm kidding. His son's what, 3 now, 4? Haven't seen him in a while though. You know, the pandemic. So we're actually supposed to hang out on Friday for the first time in been months since I've seen him in person.
Oh, very cool. I would like to get him on the podcast as well. I'd eventually like to get all of Pi on the podcast. I've got John DeLine coming on later this week to record.
Oh, John. Awesome.
Yeah. And I've gotten Leah and Kelsey and you now, so that'll give me 4 of the 7. Got to catch them all. So, your influences. What are some of the media, be it music, film, theater, television, whatever? What are some of the media that influenced the clown that you became?
Buster Keaton. Patty Gallagher introduced me to Buster Keaton. That was kind of one of my first. As a kid, I watched a lot of Looney Tunes, so I think that's sort of my base childhood. If you ever read the book Lamb by Christopher Moore, he's a San Francisco author. If you ever get a chance, that book is a comedy about the lost years of Jesus's life. And I think that inspired me to do a little bit more playfulness around the scripture, the Christian scriptures.
I'll definitely check out Lamb. That sounds amazing. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, you should. Did you ever see Hand to God? It was a show that Berkeley Rep did.
No.
I think it was called Hand. I'll have to look it up. Hand to God. But it took place in a school classroom, a church school classroom. Like, you know, they have these classrooms where the kids go to Sunday school classroom. And he had a puppet on his hand who was like evil. It was like the Satan puppet. And it was so funny because it wasn't like he was throwing his voice, right? He was talking for the puppet, and it was one of these just really beautiful shows that I was like, oh, that's really funny.
Very cool. On the same line, is there any kind of media that you think, whatever it is, any kind of media, that you think is underrated and more clowns should be checking out and paying attention to?
Oh, I don't have an answer to that.
That's okay.
I think improv, you start talking about improv, and I get so excited that I'm like, I got to get back into watching improv and like doing improv. But that's just because I love that stuff.
I just, like, I did a little bit in clown school, and my second year of clown school was heavily improv oriented. I was just going to bats for the majority of my classes because that's just the way things worked out for my second year of clown school. But then I didn't touch it for a decade. I felt like it was just something that I could not do. I just couldn't get my head around. I couldn't let go. I couldn't make it happen. And I reintroduced myself to it during the pandemic and started going to classes and very quickly auditioned for a troupe and joined a troupe and spent almost a year with the troupe doing weekly shows. And like we were talking about earlier, now I'm putting together my own show. So it's an amazing art form.
It is. It is.
Okay, before we wrap up, a couple more questions. What is a role or project that you've always wanted to do, but due to money or logistics or whatever, haven't been able to do yet?
Jeez, Abraham, these are great questions.
Well, thank you.
What is a role that I haven't been able to do? I would really like to be on Sesame Street.
Oh, yes. That would be amazing.
Like to either be a guest on Sesame Street or to even get to be one of the puppets on Sesame Street. I would really like to do that someday.
Yeah, that would. I've been looking.
Did you know? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you know that Mr. Rogers was a Presbyterian pastor?
I did know that.
Yeah, so that's that's my hope, is to maybe someday really combine these two loves and be the next Mr. Rogers.
That would be amazing.
Right?
I've been looking for internships or any kind of foot into the door for Sesame Workshop or Nickelodeon even Just trying to find people on LinkedIn that I'm even vaguely connected to get informational interviews with, just to get me in their brains in case anything ever comes up. But yeah, that sounds amazing. Okay, what are you currently working on, and in terms of your work that's available, where can people find it?
Yeah, so currently you can hear me every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock on Zoom at a Presbyterian service. A lot of my time goes into running that nonprofit because of Tyler and I haven't been doing our shows. And then the Medical Clown Project is another. I invite people to check out their website, see how you can support them. And we do some fundraising throughout the year with some shows and some activities that people can participate in. And then finally, Mr. Mustache and I, our show is online on our webpage, the Circus of Smiles. So you can find the show there. We kind of right when the pandemic hit, we recorded a 30-minute show. It's kind of an abridged version of our show, and we sent it to all the libraries that booked us and said, this is for you to use free. We're not going to be able to provide Zoom services, so here's just our show. If you can kick us some money, great. If not, we just want to bring laughter to people. So that's going around too.
That's amazing. And that's circusofsmiles.com, .org?
.org.
Circusofsmiles.org. Okay, last question before I let you go. If you could tag 3 more people to be on the podcast after you, who would they be?
That you haven't had?
Yeah.
Mr. Mustache.
Great.
You already had Patty. You've already had Leah. You've had Kelsey. You might call Bruce. He's not been in the clown circuit too long, but if you wanted to know some pie history, he would be one to contact. And then, have you talked to Brenda Arguello?
No.
She is a clown with the Medical Clown Project, and she did a lot of neo-futurist work.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and so that would be just another kind of her inroads into the clown world. I think would be a really new perspective for you. And she's married to Josh Matthews. Do you know that name?
Nope.
Okay, they're a married couple, and they are both medical clowns. Both would be good on the podcast, I think, to kind of get some perspectives, medical clown perspectives, but also just kind of their background from Chicago. They did some fringe touring. She's a neo-futurist, so those would be my 2.
That's amazing. That's great. I will try and reach out to all those people and see if I can get a hold of them. Andrew, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
And I'll send you an email about the improv stuff, okay?
Please do.
All right. I'll see you later, man.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on Ridiculous Life of a Clown. If you enjoyed this program and you'd like to get more of it, please consider sponsoring us on Patreon at patreon.com/Picklewater. For as little as $1 a month, you can help make sure that this podcast keeps coming to your ears on a regular basis. Theme music by Kevin MacLeod.